Hi there, it's Rita, and I just wanted to record a little short video for you on using the empathy map in leadership. So the empathy map is actually borrowed from our colleagues in marketing and consumer behavior. So when a product is being designed, product designers will have a look at the specifications or the attributes of that product and what they need to create for the audience. They're going to pay attention to a bunch of variables that will help them create their product. So for example, how's the product going to be used? Who's going to be using the product? What abilities do they have to be able to use that product? Is it something that requires training and quite a bit of technical expertise, or is it something that anybody could use? So they're effectively going to develop more empathy for their consumer and who is actually using that particular product or service. So it's used in both product and service land. So what I'm going to do now is share the empathy map with you and just walk you through how we would use it in a leadership perspective. So the empathy map, as I said, we use it to design products and services. We use it to really get a sense of who is using our product and service and how can we get under their skin almost and develop more empathy for them. In leadership, it's exactly the same thing. We want to really be in tune with our stakeholders. So what might they be seeing, hearing, thinking, and doing and feeling in relation to a particular issue? So let's walk through exactly how we would go about using it. So let's say, for example, we are looking, and as you can see their stakeholders right in the middle, we're looking to develop some empathy for a particular stakeholder. So I'm going to take the example of it's a team member in my team, and maybe their performance has dropped recently, and I'm trying to gauge what's creating that performance drop for my individual in my team. So the stakeholder in mind for me is my team member. The issue that I want to develop more empathy for is why there's been a drop in team performance. So I would whip out the empathy map, as you can see here on the screen, and feel free to take a screen grab, and I'll also pop an image of this on the community page so you can go ahead and download it too. But effectively, we've got our stakeholder at the center, and then we are going to be observing and paying attention to their actions. So what are they seeing? What can we see? So that's in that seeing column, but also then what's hidden. And with the column that's hidden, we need to make some assumptions around that because we don't know any of it to be true. So these are assumptions that we think and that we observe, and we go ahead and fill it out. So use this as a filling out, like a guide where you would fill out your observations. So we would start with what we can see, because that's more data that we can rely upon. Although just the caveat on that is that it's our perception, obviously, what we're seeing them do and what we're hearing them say. But in relation to the performance issue that I talked about just earlier, I would go ahead in there and I would jot down things that that person is saying. So in this example, maybe the person is not demonstrating confidence like they used to. So maybe they're saying that they don't have the capability to do that thing that I'm asking them to do. Maybe they're saying that they don't have time. Maybe they're saying that they've been under some enormous pressure from a family perspective, and that could be a contributing factor to the performance drop. What the person is saying may not be directly linked to the issue that we're working on, but we're looking for clues. So the whole purpose of using the empathy map is that we're looking for clues on behavior that we observe. So we're jotting down those three things: that they're saying that they're tired, they're saying that they don't have the capability, so it could be a confidence issue, and they're saying they've got a lot of family stuff going on. In terms of what they're doing, so we drop down into that does section of our empathy map. In here, we're going to list some behaviours that we are observing. So we're observing that they're logging on later and later, so they're working from home a couple of days a week, they're in the office 3 days a week, and we're observing that, when they're at home, they're logging on later than what they normally would. As a result, they're missing the team huddle. They're really slow to respond to email, so they're not as quick as what they were in terms of their responsiveness. And perhaps their style is a little bit different, their behavior is a little bit different. Perhaps they're a little bit more introverted than what we've normally expected and what we've become accustomed to with this person. So we would go ahead and we would jot that down into that does quadrant. So these are things that we can see, and we've jotted down in there so far behaviours that we're seeing them undertake or do demonstrate, but then we're also jotting down things that we've heard them say. Then if we flip over into that right-hand column, we've got behaviours in there that we are observing that are hidden, and what's hidden is what they may be thinking and what they may be feeling. So again, we don't know any of this to be true. So we think as the leader that maybe the person has lost the motivation for their job. They've been doing this job for 3 years. We think that they believe it's time for a promotion. We're not ready yet to promote them. And so that we think that they might have lost a little bit of motivation. And in feels, an observation that I might have as a leader is that they may feel disenfranchised with me and with the team as their leader because I'm not promoting them. And I think that that's something they really want. And then down the bottom, I've got these influences, and there's a gap in there. And really the influences are, we've got some words in there that might spur some thought, but it's things that may influence this person. So what delights them? What really lights them up in terms of their work? What do they detest? What do they not like so much? What would they defend in terms of their work and how they're performing? What are their desires? What are their hopes? What do they really want? And then what are their disappointments? And these are just words to prompt some thought around what could be influencing the behaviour. So in this case of the person who's underperforming, I might jot down that, they haven't had too many opportunities for stretch. And that's based on also my confidence as a leader, because I'm seeing performance drop. I don't really want to load them up with extra stuff right now. So I'm thinking that they're not going to like that too much. It's probably going to be in that detest category. They're not going to like that they're not being stretched very much. Their desire might be to get that promotion. And again, me thinking that they might want that, and they may feel that they're ready for that promotion, but that not being congruent with where I would put their performance. And I'd go ahead and jot that. So pause the video right now, make sure that you've gone and collected some thoughts in all the 4 quadrants, and then we'll come back. All right, so I'm hoping by now that you've gone ahead and you've completed those quadrants within the empathy map. Now that's first stage of using the empathy map. We've gone and, observed, reflected on the person's behavior. So the scenario, again, as a reminder, is my stakeholder is an underperformer in my team. So someone's been a relatively good performer, but now I find they're underperforming. And I've gathered a whole bunch of observable data in there, and I've plotted that on my empathy map. Now, that's stage 1, as I said. So now I'd like you to grab a separate piece of paper, a blank sheet. And what I'd like you to do is jot down a whole bunch of questions that you have based on the data that you have recorded. And some of those questions might be, what's happening, on a personal front? How are things going for you? You mentioned that you're tired. Is there anything I can do to support you? That would be one question. And I've given you some context there around how you could position that question. Another question could be, we've just had our last promotion round. How are you feeling about not being promoted into that next level just yet? That could be another question. A further question could be, what do you believe are your development opportunities that are going to get you ready for that next promotion? And so on and so forth. So basically what we're doing through these questions is we are trying to validate our assumptions that have been populated in the empathy map. Now, these questions, you probably want to come up with, at least a few for each of the quadrants. You're not going to ask those questions in entirety the next time you meet that person. But what you can do is infuse some of these questions in your next catch up with them. The next time you're having a one-on-one, the next time you're having a performance conversation or a development conversation with them. And so over time, and maybe over a series of a few meetings or, 3 or 4 catch-ups, hopefully you'll have the opportunity to go through these questions. The questions are designed to fill in the gaps in our empathy map. So when you were putting in that data in the initial stage 1, you might have been thinking, gee, there's actually a lot here that I don't know about what's going on for this person and what's leading to their underperformance. And if that happened to you, that's exactly where we want you to be, because the empathy map encourages us to be curious about why the person may be may be underperforming in this situation. It creates a situation where there's a gap between the judgment that we make and the data that we're collecting. And usually, you know, as leaders, we want to move through things quickly. We want to problem solve. We've got busy jobs, right? We're trying to meet operational requirements and lead. And what this process enables us to do really is slow down and really think about the issue from that person's perspective. It's what I like to call a perspective walk. So unless I'm taking an active perspective walk in the shoes of that person, it's going to be really, really difficult for me to understand why their performance may be slipping and also what they need from me as their leader. The analogy I usually give with an empathy map is that it should look like a piece of Jarlsberg cheese. And if you don't know what that is, pause the video and go and look it up. Jarlsberg with a J. Jarlsberg cheese is delicious, but the thing that disappoints me most with that cheese is it's full of holes, right? So whenever you want to bite into a nice solid piece of cheese, you're not going to get that with Jarlsberg cheese, even though it is very, very tasty. But it is effectively a piece of Jarlsberg cheese because you're going to end up with lots of holes. You're going to end up with lots of gaps in what you know. And that filling in those gaps through some really clear and kind questions is the best way for you to unlock what's going on for that person, but ultimately for you to develop more empathy for them. I hope that has been useful for you. See you soon.